We are living in the time of the postmodern president, where meaning has been fragmented and reality itself is no longer agreed upon. The postmodern president doesn't have to be elected. He doesn't have to tell the truth. And here we are, plunging headlong into a fascist dictatorship. In a postmodern presidency, the media's job has become suppressing the truth. That's how they stay in business. It promotes sameness and conformity, which has a psychological effect on the populace who become conditioned to believing that the same old shit is new and accepting that without protest. And the mass media manufactures the postmodern president and his agenda by allowing it to dominate the media space, and then, when it's the only choice and thus successful, justifies the continuation of doing it. The postmodern president traffics in fascist aesthetics. Fascist aesthetics rely on spectacle, and you see the postmodern president's playbook use those rules. When he announces sweeping changes that ignore laws and outrages everyone. When he appoints people to positions of power, which outrages everyone. When he changes the name of the Gulf of Mexico or Mount Denali, or wants to take over Greenland or Canada, white nations, by the way, not African nations, you notice. This is spectacle. Politics as wrestling. It benefits no one that voted for him, but it impacts everyone. Fascism grows when liberalism's economic and social policies fail and leaves a void. It exposes the lies of the liberal agenda. The biggest lie is that they even ever intended to truly eradicate these problems, but simply to make empty noises and gestures that resemble doing something about these problems without actually acting. How much wasted energy is put into this charade that could have been spent on actual solutions? Liberalism, in the form of capitalism, creates contradictions that it has no intentions of resolving. Inequality, uncertainty, and precarity being perhaps most prominent. In the midst of this uncertainty, fascism, in this case in the guise of the postmodern president, exploits this uncertainty, which leads to fear, and then says only he can solve the problem, but refuses to say how, and then begins sweeping changes that don't resolve the problem but make it worse. But the process has begun, and now he and his cronies benefit from exploiting this fear. As long as liberalism or neoliberalism relies on capitalism, fascism will be a byproduct of its inevitable failure. This was true not only in Nazi Germany, but in post-war Germany and in modern Germany today, where far-right movements continue to emerge during times of economic and social uncertainty. The philosopher and social critic Theodor Adorno talks about these things in his book, Aspects of the New Right-Wing Extremism, which was written in 1967, yet rings true today. His formula for the rise of fascism is as true today as when he wrote it. And while it's not exactly the same, it is eerily similar. It doesn't have to be a duplicate of the past, only redolent of it, reminiscent of it. The postmodern president may very well not be Hitler or Mussolini or even Joe McCarthy, but make no mistake, he is their progeny. While the enemy, immigrants, minorities, liberals, wokeism, DEI, those that stand in the way of the new neo-colonialism, is always shifting based on needs, the power remains in the hands of the same people. Until we recognize that fascism is an outgrowth of the failure of capitalism, and that's what needs to be changed, fascism will hover over that broken system. Deconstructionism, an idea introduced by the French philosopher Jacques Derrida, says there is no ultimate meaning to any words, sentences, or texts, that there is no ultimate reality or ultimate truth. And while I might agree with that, It allows cunning con men like the postmodern president to step into that void and use and exploit those concepts for his own gain. Deconstruction allows the postmodern president to outright lie and insist it's the truth, and no matter how much you argue using reason or rationality or logic, you can't change it. So the truth, if it exists, becomes buried under an avalanche of lies that are now also called the truth. It allows the postmodern president to exploit the contradictions to fulfill his own agenda. We've always had politicians talking out of both sides of their mouth, and we know politics to be inherently untrue. But now there's no need for both sides of the mouth. The postmodern president can express the contradictions that once emerged from both sides of the mouth as one coherent thought from the whole mouth, especially if people are desperate and need to believe something. This changes laws and rules and history itself, and truth itself, and reality itself. They no longer exist, yet people yearn for it, so the postmodern president provides a new version that desperate people will cling to and call it the truth. There was a TV show on when I was a kid called To Tell the Truth. 3 people would come out and pretend to be somebody, and one of them was actually that person, and the other 2 were imposters. Once they revealed who the real person was, everyone would laugh and applaud when the real person stood up. In today's version of To Tell the Truth, 2 or even all 3 might get up and insist they were the real person, and there would be no way of knowing. That is the frustrating game show we are all playing now. We only know the postmodern president because he stood up and said he was. But what if he's not?